question is, let me read out the first question. Dear Venerable, thanks so much to give me a very important concept of non-self. However, I am just a layperson. I have my family, I have husband and wife and kids. How this concept can help us to attain more peace in our mind? Okay, self. When our senses personalize all these subjective experiences, you create I like, I hate, I am angry, I don't like it, I'm jealous, I'm happy, I'm glad, I'm joyful. You create all kinds of this kind of emotions, right? Not just wholesome ones, unwholesome ones, some wholesome and some are unwholesome. Is there a chance that you don't personalize subjective experiences? Is there a chance like that you don't personalize subjective experiences? Yes, there is a chance that you don't do that. When you are awakened, when you are enlightened, then you don't personalize. When you have anatta, when you have no self, when you don't have a self, you don't personalize. But I can tell you, me, we all personalizing everything. There's no exception. Is there any person who don't personalize? Raise your hands. You know, in some situations like this, some people raise their hands. I don't personalize when I sleep. When I'm sleeping. How can I personalize? You know what? When you are sleeping, you also personalize. You personalize in your dream. In your dream, you still personalize. In your dream, your personalization is even more intensive. Your hatred is more intensive. Your pleasure is more intensive. So there's no 1 second that you don't personalize. So when you personalize, you have dangerously created a self. You know how you personalize. When you personalize, then you create certain reaction, then you have this I. And you say, what is this I? When I say I, when I personalize something, then I identify something with something. This identity must have some time and space. If there is some time, then what is this I? This I must have a present, must have a future, must have a past. Then what is this I that exists? Anything that exists must have times and space. If certain existence has no time and space, how do you identify it? You tell me. If it's something that there's something that I identify with, and that thing has no times and space, what is that? Well, there's nothing. So anything you identify with, something you call I, right? I can see, right? I can see I. But when you say this is I can see, what can you see? You see your own body, right? My body is I. My body is mine. You see your own body, right? In the Buddhist language, that is Sakaya Ditti in Pali, and in Sanskrit is Sakaya Dristi. In Chinese is Shen Jian, personality belief. I believe in I. So you created the I out of identity, out of your reaction, out of your personalization. And this I, you have to identify it. Otherwise, you don't know what is I. The only thing you can identify with I is your body. Maybe your mind too. Your body and your mind, right? That's I. But then you say, my body and mind must have a past. My past began with my birth, and my future ends in death, right? And in between, what do I have? I'm struggling for existence in between. In between, I'm struggling for existence. I don't have an existence, but I'm struggling for it because I think I have an existence. I'm struggling to exist, but sorry, you don't even exist. You're struggling for something that you You have never existed. So what are you struggling for? You have never existed. So what are you struggling for? You think you exist. You think you exist, but you have never existed. So what did they say? In the Buddha said, we're living in a dream of existence. We think we exist, but we have never existed. But you say, I have a body. I exist. But then what is this body? This body has passed. The body is aging, sickness, death, struggle for existence, going to party, getting married, having children, going to school, making sure that my children go to universities, making sure that I make all the money, making sure I go to party, I go to Europe for a trip, for an excursion. I go everywhere. I enjoy sensual pleasures. Everything is like this. But all these ends with death. All these things that I have created for I to enjoy actually is aging, deafness, sickness, departure from beloved ones. I have created this I, and this I created suffering. So I created the suffering. Why am I creating this suffering? I don't know. You tell me. Why are you creating suffering? Because you think you have an I. And that I is delusive. The moment that you understand all this, you are on your way to enlightenment. The moment you understand all this, now you have, unless you're so stubborn that I deny whatever you say. I am I. I have to be rich. And you know, all this identity of I, all this thinking of I, is not someone doing it. It just comes. It's just happening without you, without your knowledge. You don't know it happened. When you're doing something, you make it happen, right? But actually, this existence is not doing an existence. You're not doing an existence. The existence has happened to you, and you think you exist. In philosophy, they call it existential philosophy, 存在主義. So you're asking me, how does it benefit the family, the kids, and the husband and wife? If you know all these, you're beginning to realize that you shouldn't be emotional. So if you're a mom, and all the kids, some kids are difficult to deal with. Some husbands always have relationships. Some husbands are selfish, egoistic. Then you know that you don't have, first of all, you don't attach to it, because everybody has this reaction. They're not enlightened, but you are enlightened. So sort of, you tied up a knot of hatred, hating your husband inside because your husband is, I don't know. Then you untie the knot because you know that I'm not going to arouse that kind of reaction. And how come that reaction comes up to make me unhappy? It's because I have created the karmic energy. I have all these mental afflictions in my previous lives that I brought forward to here. And the fact that my husband is treating me that way is because I treated him the same way before. I owed him $50,000, and now I have to be his wife, making sure that I repay the $50, and when the $50 is paid up, we have a divorce. Or something like that, I don't know. Everybody come with a relationship, a bondage, a relationship. When that relationship is clear, and accounting-wise, it's easier to understand. Where the debits and credits got balanced, you don't have any liability anymore. Your asset, your liability, they all balance out. No more general ledger. The general ledger is a zero balance because credit and debit. You used to have a lot of credit now on the accounting side because you owed him something. He has a liability to you that you have to fulfill, you have to repay. Now you come back to pay the liability. He has an accounts receivable. You have to pay them. Everybody is in debt. Emotional debt, materialistic debt. You know why your mom and dad raised you up with all the tuition fees? Probably he owed you that much. You have to come back for it. And some kids, some teenagers, they receive all this benefit from their moms and dads. They never think about filial piety. They never think about, I love my dad for paying me so much, for giving me so much. Because he owed you the debt and he doesn't owe you the feelings. So you have no respect for your mom and dad. You just receive your money from him, from her. I'm going too deep into these things. Just a few sit to say, how does it help the family? By knowing non-self, you are less egoistic. You are more sympathetic. You're more congenial in the feelings. Everything, if you have some setbacks, you have some emotions, you can easily relax the emotions by applying a non-self. And you can teach your kids to behave in the same way. You know why people become emotional, have a lot of sufferings? Because you cannot untie the knots of emotions inside of you. I think I've answered this. You help your family by knowing non-self, that you're not as emotional. Then when emotions come up, you can control them because your rational mind is stronger than your emotional mind. First of all, you'll be happier. When you encounter situations in your family that people are egoistic, then you know that you're not going to fight it. Because you understand that you cannot use emotions against emotions. Now you know that you have a rational mind to overcome emotions. If they raise in my emotional mind, you have forgiveness. So to practice the Buddhist teaching, a portion of it is forgiveness. You have to learn how to forgive. So if you know that your rational mind must be in control of the emotional mind, your magnitude of forgiveness is much deeper. And that brings up another concept, the Prajna concept, the four immeasurable hearts. In the Pali language, is metta. Metta is to render loving kindness. Metta is to render loving kindness. The second one, karuna. In the Pali language, karuna. My loving kindness is only to my family, my friends. But now, more than just to your friends and to your relative, you extend it to all sentient beings. The depth, how deep is your loving kindness? Your loving kindness getting to be very deep, it's so deep that you don't discriminate anybody anymore. You render your loving kindness and your metta and your karuna to everybody, not just to friends you know. What is si in Pali languages? Mudita. Mudita. M-U-D-I-T-A. Mudita. Then you have equanimity of mind, you have all the comfort in you. Why are you uncomfortable? Because you're selfish. We're all selfish. That makes us have emotional feeling. So you ask me, how does it benefit the family? If you don't have self, you must have ci, you must have bei, you must have metta, you must have karuna. Because what? Because you don't have a self anymore. So your loving kindness and your karuna must have a wide magnitude. Then you become very happy. You have this rapture of joy. We call it mudita. Dear Reverend, can you talk about your view of empty? First of all, empty is not my view. It's the Buddha's view. I am not qualified to give you my view. It's not my view. It's the Buddha Sakyamuni's view. The recognition of cycles and dynamics is the awareness of the impermanence. But wouldn't the cycles themselves take the space and time identifying the existence of its own? So empty is equal to dynamic existence? No, first of all, we don't have any existence at all. What is dynamics? Dynamic is moving. When you're talking about cycles and dynamic, you are talking about evolution. Everything is evolved from one stage to another. You're talking about a cycle, talking about dynamics. When you're talking about cycles and dynamic, you're talking about life and death all the time, samsara. Like after you die, you'll be born again, you're reborn, you make all this karmic again, and then you go into the next life again. So dynamics and cycles is what? It's always moving. And when we talk about, when the Buddha talked about nirvana, what is nirvana? Nirvana is no more moving. It is only when you don't move, it is only when there's no cycle and dynamics that you attain an enlightenment. So existence, whatever have cycles and dynamics, always exist. What is a cycle? What is a dynamic? There must be existence in a cycle. There must be existence in dynamics. But I can tell you, there's no existence. Why is there no existence? Well, already I have explained it. You think our senses exist? You think objects exist? Why can we see something? Just take one example. Why can we see? What are we seeing? We are seeing lights. When there's no light, you don't see, right? If it is complete dark, can you see anything? So the fact that you can see the cycle, you can see the dynamics, is when you're not at darkness. So what you are seeing is dependent on many conditions. The conditions is there is light. So when an object is formed, you are not looking at that object, existence of that object. You are looking at the temporal combination of lights. And usually there are 7 lights, right? Like a rainbow. You have violet, blue, orange, and all this light. When these lights perform together, they give a wavelengths, right? Light radiate to you wavelengths. This wavelength is in frequency. So there's frequency of light. Because of that frequency, your eyes can see. Because the light transport this frequency to you so that you can see. And your eyes can be tuned to that frequency. Sometimes your eyes cannot see certain light. We call it what? X-ray. Ultraviolet rays. You cannot see ultraviolet ray because the frequency is higher than what your eyes can see. So actually, you're not seeing the object. You're just seeing a whole bunch of lights. And this whole bunch of lights are dependent on many conditions for that light to be formed. So there's no existence of that object. There's not even existence of your eyesight because your eyesight is dependent on many, many, many conditions. We call it what? We call it antecedental concurrence. In the Sanskrit language, is paticca samuppada. You may not, you have to study it to know. So there's no existence. What is the existence of I? I exist because you identify this body as I. And this existence of this body called I is dependent on many, many conditions. What are these conditions? First of all, a young man and a woman must come together to do that thing, to produce the sperm and the metazoa and the fusing of the ovary, and then you hide inside your mom's belly, and then slowly it will come out, based on many conditions. If some conditions don't fulfill, you don't come out. And you're so comfortable in your mom's stomach. You're so comfortable. Because you don't have to breathe. The baby don't breathe, only come out when they breathe, because you have all the food is ready for you. You are in there, you feel you are squeezed, but you are still okay. So that's the reason why when you come out, you don't like it. You cry. Did you come out and laugh? If a baby come out and hee and start to laugh, then it must be so funny. So why does a baby always cry when it's coming out? Because, yeah?
It has to breathe on their own.
Yeah, because when you come out, you are so comfortable, so warm inside your mother's body that when you come out, it's air conditioning. And then you're touched by the doctor, and then you're pulled out from there, and then you cut the belt, that string, and you've been so used to the warmth, now it's getting cold, and you've been put it in a cradle or something, and you have to touching your body, and then you're just too lazy to breathe. When the doctor say this baby is not moving, so he hold up the baby upside down and then spang his bottom, and then you cry, and then you start to cry. You come with nothing. You're not carrying any piece of cloth when you come. Maybe, if I can say, you come with an accompanying cry in you. And when you leave, you can bring nothing with you. Not your bank account, not your house, not your money, not your status. You come with nothing, you go away with nothing. No exception. And some people say, no, I go away with a coffin in me, and I go away with a location that I bought in Ocean View, and that cost me $8,000, and now it's raised to 12. I can sell it if I don't die to make about $4,000. So you're thinking about all these things. So psychodynamics is equal to existence, but existence is empty, is sunyata, is antecedental concurrence. It has no inherent existential nature. It is void. It is empty. So I don't know how to go on with this, but suffice it to say, there's no existence. The existence is sunyata. The existence is conditional. What is it? What is true existence, though? We say existence. What is existence? Existence means it has its own existential nature. When something has its own existential nature, there must be three conditions. The one condition is it arises on its own. Like God. God is God. There's no such thing as who created God. I'm God. You don't need anything. You just, I exist, then I exist. That's the first one. You must be able to exist on your own. The second is you never change. You never change. The third, you don't depend on conditions. You always remain. You never die. But can you find anything that has those characteristics on earth? Can you find anything that never die? Can you find anything that never change? Can you find anything that does not depend on conditions for this existence? Cannot. So there's no intrinsic existence. There's only delusive existence, which means that this existence will die. This existence will change. Anything that exists will not exist. Just exist on a temporary basis. That makes us unhappy, you know. Why do we have suffering? Because nothing is permanent. You know what the Buddha was thinking about this problem is that I want to transcend existence. I don't want aging. I don't want death. I don't want sickness. I don't want sufferings. How can I go about transcending existence and suffering, or the belief of existence and suffering? He found a way. And he put it down in sutras. That's nirvana. But I think if you're interested, you should start venturing into it. Not immensely saying that you want to study it because, like a Buddha, for people, for yourself. Should you start venture into this for yourself? Or you still think about the temporal way of living, which has very little value? Anybody who was here in the Chinese New Year's Eve? I was talking about something about the values of life, and some people expressed that that's quite meaningful, and that also triggers the the idea in my mind that whenever someone asks, when we teach the younger generation, what do we tell them? Say when we teach Buddhism, how do we tell teenagers about Buddhism? If you tell teenagers about existence, about all these things, they may not listen to you. How do you teach teenagers Buddhism? And I've been pondering on this, and I wrote out 3 values that everybody should be pursuing. The one is to be good. Second is to be happy. The third is to be wise. No exceptions. These are the human values. To be good, right? Goodness is a human value. But what's the standard of being good? How to be good? How to cultivate goodness? The Buddha said we have to observe sila to be good. Raise your morality standard. To be good, you have to raise your morality standard, and that is abstain from killing, abstain from stealing, abstain from sexual misconduct, abstain from lying, abstain from intoxication. Now these are the basic moral parameters of being a good person. Have you got all these? If you haven't got all these, you're not even good, judging by the parameters of this goodness. And then to be happy. How do you to be happy? To be happy is not to have a lot of money. It's not just to live in a big mansion in Shaughnessy. To be happy is not just social status and title. To be happy, the happiness is within. You're surrounded by money, but you're not happy. To be happy is the peace of mind in you. If you have that peace of mind, tranquility of mind, you are happy. You have no emotions, no greediness, no passions, no jealousy. Then the happiness is not external; it's internal. How do you have internal happiness? It is only when your mind is peaceful that happiness will come. How to have a peaceful mind? The Buddha pointed out that we should what? We should learn samadhi. To be wise. We have to be wise, right? The human value. Is anybody here who say, I don't want to be wise? Raise your hand. I want to be stupid. Raise your hands. Nobody wants to be stupid, right? You want to be wise. You want to be wise, so what do? If you want to be wise, you have to understand the true intrinsic characteristic of existence. You have to understand what is impermanent. You have to understand what is non-self. You have to understand what is suffering. You have to understand all these prajna concepts the Buddha expounded to you. And that's how you view everything. How do you use a non-self to view everything? How do you get rid of your emotions? So, to be good is to practice sila. To be happy is to practice samadhi. To be wise is to practice vipassana, prajna.